Thank you for joining me in my scripting course, Fundamentals of Scripting. As an IT professional that's been doing this for some time and somebody that started off many years ago learning to program, and that's sort of how I found my way into IT. Uh, but later on found that I enjoyed working on the administration side of things more than actually writing code. I come to find now that many people new to the IT field, or even some older people who have never really been exposed to programming very much, have a difficult time with scripting. Um, this in particular seems to be present with people who have taken college level courses that were focused on infrastructure or network administration and those sorts of things, or people who have taken many of the certification courses you're going to find from vendors on the infrastructure side. I felt that this would be a very good way to help people understand scripting better and be able to implement it more in their own environments and be able to better use scripts that they find online and understand what they're doing. One of the biggest things you never want to do, of course, is find scripts or applications online and not know what they're actually doing. That can be very harmful, actually. Uh, so I want to thank you for that, for joining me here. This is just a very brief outline of the fundamentals I'm putting together. It's not going to be a very long series. I don't know how long the videos are going to be. I don't think I have a time limit on them that I'm trying to keep them to or anything. But basically, I would consider this kind of a crash course for people in the IT field or anyone that just kind of wants to get an idea of how to script. Um, I'm going to be going over some of the basics of scripting mainly, and then I will be using PowerShell to implement some actual real world examples. Um, a lot of you can find a lot more advanced stuff out there regarding PowerShell and learning how to do things. This really isn't so much a PowerShell tutorial sort of thing as it is just sort of a fundamentals of scripting and programming sort of course. I just happen to use PowerShell as the example, and hopefully maybe you can even find something useful out of the examples that I provide and the information I provide about that. But anyways, let's just going to go over the outline of this series here. And so the outline, we're going to start by going over logic. Now, sometimes, many people even in the infrastructure side have had logic courses, particularly if they've been doing things like integrated circuitry, where, you create things like logic gates and so forth. But what we're going to be covering, of course, are some of the basic logic operators, and if-then statements, and or and exclusive or scenarios, and I'll explain what those are in the logic video. Each one of these major topics is going to be one video in and of itself. So the very first one I'm going to do outside of this is a video on logic, and we're going to discuss that. Then we're going to talk about loops. After logic, loops is a very important thing. Loops let us process things redundantly, do processes over. They're exactly what they sound like. They're looping. They come back and keep doing themselves. There are different kind of loops, and they're pretty much universal across all sorts of programming languages and scripting. There's for loops, while loops, and do loops. So you have like for instance. For some number to another number, do the following. Or while somebody's input is not the letter Q, then you're going to continue doing this with Q being for quit. Or do while or do until this is specific, or do while this is, or while this is true, or until this is not true, basically. Essentially, the differences between those is, one is do while something is true, and then do something until it's not true. So basically, those are the cases there. We'll do some examples of these different loops. I don't think we'll be using the do while loop too much. I may have to strain to show you some of those, as it's not as much of a common looping structure that I tend to use. So it's a little more difficult for me to show you in a real life application. But I'm sure I will find some way to do that for you. Then we're going to talk about pseudocode and diagramming. Now, a lot of times you can skip for basic scripts. You can skip these sorts of things. Even for basic applications, you can script these sorts of things. And as you become more advanced, you can do more advanced, envisioning of these things in your mind. And this becomes less important. But when you're having a problem understanding the logic of something, or you're trying to resolve a complex issue or a complex algorithm you're trying to put together in order to do something, this becomes very important. This also becomes important for you if you want to understand what your code is doing, or what any code is doing, kind of walking through it in plain English. Diagramming, of course, is a more visual representation of that, and that'd be basically the idea of flowcharting your stuff. We'll probably focus more on the pseudocode, but we'll talk a little bit at the diagramming. Diagramming has never been one of my bigger things, unless I'm trying to do like high level preview of certain things, processes, and so forth. But these can be very important to helping you understand your code and how you want to use it. So like I said, this is about planning your code, and as I said, it's valuable with more complex scripts. Then we're going to go ahead and do one video on examples in PowerShell. I call them examples in PowerShell Part 1. There's going to be a Part 2, but basically in Part 1, we're going to do application of these scripting skills and scripting knowledge in some basic examples in PowerShell. Pretty much just plain Jane PowerShell. I will be using PowerShell for Windows version 5, version 6 and 7. Actually, is it maybe 4? I can't remember. I forget which of the last one. I'll be using the last Windows-only version of PowerShell for my scripting examples, which I think is 5. I know 6 and 7 are both based on the .NET Core. It's cross-platform. Most of the stuff I'm doing in the basic examples will be cross-platform, as they don't really have any sort of specific platform ties or anything. And then examples in PowerShell 2, I'll be using some more advanced examples. These will be more Windows specific, using Windows features. As I mentioned, the same version of PowerShell will be the Windows version of PowerShell. The PowerShell open version, if you will, that's cross-platform, may have some of these things found by using the Windows compatibility module for it. But since I mainly work with Windows machines, this is where I'm going to be showing you most of this. But one of the nice things about PowerShell is that Microsoft has made it cross-platform, and it is .NET based, so you can pretty much call upon anything in the .NET framework. The Windows.NET framework with the Windows version of PowerShell, and of course you can, with the open version, you can pretty much call upon anything in the .NET Core framework, which is cross-platform. So you can apply some of this to any sort of machine you want to. And some of these examples, some of the basic examples in Part 1, you could probably run against multiple different operating systems and be able to get the same sorts of results and find the same sorts of information you're looking for. So anyways, I want to thank you again for joining me. I hope you stick around for the entire series. They will not be released all at once. I'm not Netflix. I will be creating them as I can. This video probably will be accompanied by the Logic video as well when I publish it. But if not, the Logic video should be coming within a week. I'm hoping that I can do one of these additional videos at least, once every week or two tops until all of them are out there. Unfortunately, they do take time to plan out and stuff, and I'm not only lazy, but I also have a bunch of other things I have to do. So thank you again, and I hope that you stay around for the video series and you find it interesting and you get something out of it. Take care.